So, really, let's take a look back. So, we know storytelling. We know that we can read books. We know that we can watch movies. We know we can listen to radio. But where did it originate? Why do we do it? Is there more to it than just entertainment? And really, the base of it, from archaeological research, is just that it remains to this day one of the most important ways for us to convey information to one another. And especially in a time before there was the written language, our ability to communicate, telling stories of dangers, where food and water is located, where there may be, about the seasons, as people live and tell stories through generations about how every 4 years there may be a famine, or every 3 years there may be great flooding that you can take advantage of. These types of things being conveyed in music, these types of things being conveyed in stories that people can pass back and forth to one another is a much easier way than just giving blanket information. Stories are things we remember, rhymes and rhythms and melodies are things that we remember. So it has great survival necessity. And again, not just to help us know about, where things like food and water is, where dangers are, just basic survival needs, but also stories form nations, stories form cultural identities. It keeps nations intact and together along ideological and philosophical lines. Where's the motivation to build great monuments? And again, you got to think, especially back in ancient times, especially prehistoric times before writing was around, or even not too long after it came about. Where was the motivation for everybody to work towards a huge goal where it required you to toil in the fields and sacrifice the grain and food that you produce to the greater good of the kingdom? If everybody didn't believe in a singular story and a singular idea, or at least enough of the population, if they weren't able to really, lock on to an idea, then where's the motivation for unity? And, as we talked a little bit about before, the formation of civilization, oftentimes, well, not oftentimes, but that started to happen around when people were able to take advantage of agricultural science, domesticate animals and things like that. So again, villages became bigger, societies started to become larger. One of the ways that people had motivation to unify together at all was through unifying through common stories, whether that be origin stories or, pharaohs and great kings who inspired their people to build, just great cities. If everybody isn't on board with the same idea, then, we're just not going to be able to do things like that. So again, the power of storytelling really goes deep into the formation of civilization, even today, for people to have, just national identities. And the majority of our technology really in some form or fashion centers around storytelling in some way, whether that be television, radio, movies, the printing press, social media, gossip is storytelling. Songs about love, songs about overcoming great challenges. All of those things are how we communicate our experiences with one another. Most of our technology, again, centers around communication or storytelling. And here, what was it? Some that I had down. Oh, yeah, some of the, more common tropes also that we see, whether it be in fiction or just stories that we tell each other, that, again, have survival implications on why we even do it. The trope of the underdog rising to the top. Everybody loves that. Everybody, can get motivation from that. And, the evolutionary benefit is overcoming the endless challenges of life, survival and evolution. Why do we identify with the underdog who rises to the top and overcomes challenges? Because life's hard, you know what I mean? So again, these types of things keep us going. Love stories, sex and reproduction, social survival, stories of great friendship, how people came together, not just romantic stories. All of these things center around our survival and, not necessarily us romanticizing it, but us just seeing the humanity in it, seeing the positivity in it. And then, of course, we have many stories of war, which for the good or for the bad is part of being a living creature, and especially being a very socially and emotionally complicated human being. So many of our war stories, war isn't, many people fight wars not necessarily for plunder But oftentimes people are on the defensive side. People are on the side of defending their lands, defending their families. So again, these are things that people have been able to relate to all throughout history. So again, music and storytelling really have implications of just survival. I started out with, where's the water? Where's the food? What are the seasons like? What should I look out for when I'm on the road? These types of things can be communicated via song and via storytelling. And one of the important things to remember about that is because human beings are both logical and emotional creatures. So actually, we assimilate information much more thoroughly through storytelling than if it's just like charts and graphs and just logical information, because we're not robots. And, again, what about sci-fi? Science fiction actually has inspired tons of inventions and pushes us forward still. So again, storytelling, even if it's fiction, it keeps us going. It gives us many of the ideas that put engineers and physicists to the task. And obviously now, just in terms of money, billions of dollars are generated through product placement within stories. Somehow everything ties back to that. Think about how quickly a lie can travel around the world. Think about how quickly people can get caught up in something that isn't necessarily true. Again, it's all storytelling, which is why it's so interesting. And then also, too, to get into the power that this storytelling has in politics, the power that storytelling has for authoritarians, and even not necessarily people who are authoritarians, but just powerful leaders, people who are able to inspire, people who are able to connect people to times of struggle, key moments of motivation, key areas of how we can link together. That's what makes a good leader. And, the truth is that the best storytellers have the strongest influence in society, because money and power isn't enough. People can have a lot of money and power. People can have a lot of brute force, but you can't rule through fear alone. You can't really push a nation in any type of direction just with money and just with resources. You have to get people on board with things. And so, again, that's why, throughout history, when you look at some of the most charismatic leaders, for the good or for the bad, their ability to orate, their ability to tell a powerful story is what did it. So, also, obviously, when it comes just to, business, even just in business, oftentimes the story is what sells the company. Oftentimes the story is what gets the initial investment. The product itself may not be all that great, but people could support the company and the business because of their mission, or because of how they got started, or because they really, really like and support the founders. Again, the power of storytelling. And again, I'm going to have to do a whole show on Elon Musk, because the myth of Elon Musk, that's what I get into. You know what I'm saying? Because everything about that man is a lie. But again, the power of storytelling. People think that he's going to take us to Mars and he's going to solve all of the world's problems, even though he's really just a con artist and he's not even an engineer. But again, I'm going to get off on a whole tangent. I'm already tired. You know what I'm saying? We're not here to talk about that today. Getting into, again, just some of the similarities with storytelling and music. Music is something that gives us the ability to bond with one another quickly, even if, let's say, we can't necessarily speak the same language as one another. And again, this isn't necessarily just for modern times, but also back in time you go. You're meeting people in a different land. You can't necessarily communicate with one another, but you're around at dinner. You're around when people are feasting and eating. And y'all are connecting because you really love the sounds that everybody's making, the vibes people are giving out as they're singing together. Again, it's something that really connects us as humans. And also, just kind of interestingly, you got to think conversation is kind of something that, conversation is kind of something that's like a one at a time type of exchange. I talk, you talk, you talk, I talk. Well, sometimes, motherfuckers talk over each other, but you know what I'm trying to say. But music, with music, we all can kind of sing and speak at the same time, which again, kind of on more of just an emotional and spiritual level, bonds us together. And again, we're very social and emotional creatures. And any way we can bond with one another is to the benefit of our survival as a species, especially too when you think about when you take away things like, what up, Adrian? Oh yeah, my weekend was good. My weekend was good. I appreciate y'all for being here. I'm gonna chop this up and get these out in segments, but I definitely appreciate y'all for coming in tonight. But what was I talking about? Oh yeah, just in terms of I went on the tropes and the science and how we engage with stories and how music again, because it can help us bond. It helps to stimulate things like cooperation, coordination within children. It helps to stimulate cooperation, coordination, focus, pattern detection, anticipation of events. And all of these things are important. And again, like just general social skills, being able to detect patterns in people's voices and people's faces and their body language. All of that is very important, just when it comes to just being successful in the world. And again, the more back in time you go, the more treacherous things get. So these types of skills become even more important. You can see again how now storytelling and music is kind of, transformed into something that's still important to our survival, but it's how we entertain ourselves. But again, you can see how it originated as something that was very key to our ability to survive at all. If it wasn't for storytelling and music, we wouldn't know where a lot of the resources that we needed to survive were. When the world just wasn't as connected. And and when it comes to storytelling, people have been doing it for tens of thousands of years. Even other species of human, the Neanderthals, Homo erectus. There's been evidence found of cave paintings, but also of early speech, just vocal bones and stuff like that. Of just like going back to how far we've been able to communicate from simple to complex and stuff like that. And think about religion. Think about the ways that for the good or for the bad, because there's typically nothing's typically 100%. But for the good or for the bad, the stories in religion, the parables that Jesus told to encourage togetherness and love and empathy and understanding. When people were asking him about, why should I help my neighbor? Why should I love my neighbor? Those stories still are with us. They've been being told for thousands of years. Religious stories from other religions that people still use just as daily parables on how to go about life. So it's all around us. And I just wanted to close with a nice quote, a Native American quote that says, "Every time an elder dies, a library burns with them." And I thought that was pretty powerful, again, just to close off with how, again, most of what we are is telling stories to one another. And I just thought that was pretty interesting.